Thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring this video with a brand new spare pulley for Annie Are You OK's weapon system. As with everything else I've made, this has come out really nice, and it's awesome that I did not have to tap all 6 of these holes into aluminium. I don't really like tapping things, so having it tapped already directly from them is awesome. Anyway, let's talk about packing robots. Hello everybody, I am Ben from Team Panic. And for me, the most important thing when traveling with a robot is spares. And which is why PCBWay is sponsoring today's video to give us this lovely spare part for Annie Are You OK? And the reason I say spares is the most important thing is because when you travel with combat robots like this, you often have a choice because you have a weight limit, or at least when I travel like this, I'm typically flying somewhere. That means I have a weight limit of stuff to bring. And spares beats tools for me every time. And part of that is because I build robots that I want to travel with in such a way that they can be built with only a couple of tools. Annie here can be pulled apart and put back together with 2 or 3 screwdrivers and a wrench, and that's about it. Maybe a pair of pliers if needs be. Everything else is catastrophic damage, which would need specialized tools and equipment. So I would also bring a soldering iron for Annie as well, just to make sure things in the wiring don't get too messed up. But other than that, we should be pretty okay with that. And anything outside of that, we probably could borrow off of somebody. Spares, on the other hand, you cannot borrow. I cannot get a brand new faceplate for Annie off of somebody else at the event. So when I say I'm running with spares, I am running with a lot of spares. Basically enough stuff to almost completely rebuild Annie Are You OK? And a bunch of weapons. I have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Although, having said that, some of these are weapon options rather than weapon spares, but there are some spares in amongst the mix as well. So for me, spares is the big thing. Bringing as many spares as I possibly can, and to be honest, I will probably have to drop one of these weapon spares just for weight reasons. Which of course means I've got spares of the important stuff as well. A whole bunch of googly eyes. Anyway, now we actually move on to something very important, because a lot of airlines have restrictions and rules around this. That is batteries. All airlines are different, and I suggest that you go and look at your airline's rules on batteries before flying with them. A lot of the time the batteries in combat robots aren't going to be large enough for the airline to be super worried about them, but it's always a good idea to make sure you know what the airline expects of you before you travel. The one thing I will say is that every airline thinks of robot combat batteries as spare batteries. They are a thing built into something that they were not intended for, essentially. So you need to remove the batteries from your robot before competing or before flying. And the best way to travel with them, I've found, which meets most airline safety requirements, is to tape the ends of all lead, balance lead, and the main lead. So I'm just going to go ahead and sort this battery out right now. Just like that. So we're going to tape over both ends, so it's got the balance lead done and that end done. We put it in a clear plastic bag. You can individually do these in individual clear plastic bags. Some airlines need that. Other airlines, it is fine to put multiple batteries into the same bag, but all of them need to be taped on both battery terminals, both the balance lead and the main lead, and then in clear plastic bags. And then I also travel with them in a fireproof bag as well. So put the whole plastic bag inside a fireproof bag, just for an extra level of protection and also for an extra level of safety and getting through security and that type of fun stuff. This is the big one that you really do need to be careful of, and you do need to make sure you're following all the rules for, because the last thing you want is to get to security and find out that your batteries are being confiscated by a security guard. And you can make it to the event, but you don't have any batteries to fight with. The final thing I'll say on this is that it's a good idea to drop into this bag a printout of the guide that you found for your airline. So if your airline has a thing that says LiPo batteries must be below a certain size, have tape ends, be in a clear bag, Print that out, stick it in this LiPo bag so that if the security guard questions you when you pull that out at the X-ray, because you need to pull the stuff out at X-ray, you've got the piece of paper that says, yes, the airline is allowing me to take this with me, again, so that you don't lose your very important batteries going through security. Next step is item protection. You basically just have to assume that when your robot is in your bag, the bag is going to be thrown down a flight of stairs or multiple flights of stairs by the baggage handlers at your airline, because sometimes it does happen, or at least something like that does happen, which means protecting the robot and protecting anything that sticks out. So the way I do this personally, I usually take a towel with me and I wrap the robot in the towel fairly simply. Obviously I'm going to do this a little bit better when I actually put it into the bag, but wrap it in a towel so that there is a lot more protection and padding around it than there would otherwise be. The other thing to think about too is your transmitter. Transmitters are great, but they have lots of sticky outy, pointy, prongy bits at the top, which are liable to get damaged. In actual fact, this transmitter has a brand new switch or a bodged in switch on one of the corners because, or one of the switches, because it got broken in transit. So the only time I ever pull out my transmitter case is when I am flying anywhere, because this thing is full of foam and basically makes sure that the transmitter survives the trip in one piece, or mostly in one piece. Final tip here is item management, and this is mostly to do with spares, and my tip here is Ziploc bags. Lots and lots of them. Make sure to Ziploc things together that are like things. So for example, if I do all of my wiring, my spare wiring, so there's a spare wiring loom, a couple of spare ESCs, in fact some more spare ESCs, anything wiring goes in this bag. So when I get to the other end, I know that this bag has got all of the spares for the wiring in it, whereas if I get another bag out, I can start putting in other particular parts, like some of my 3D printed parts. They all go in their own bag, because then that way, when I get there, as mentioned, I know exactly where all of the things are. The final thing here is screws. Screws have a tendency to destroy things in bags. I have lost a whole number of like little cases and things that I put screws in. As the screws get shaken around, they just do damage over time to the environment. So I find it's better to leave them in blister packs that I get them in, and these blister packs, because they're just a little bit soft and squidgy, seem to survive that damage fairly well. So keeping things together, keeping the screws in those blister packs does help keep things together in some ways. And everything else there is Ziploc bags. These here are the types of cases that I've used before that have been destroyed, and I often, if I'm flying with something like this in my carry-on or in my check-in baggage, I now just tape them shut with as much tape as I can get on them, just so that if something does break, then we don't have a giant spillage of screws or nuts or bolts into the bag.